go. Let's see if we're live on TikTok. I think so. Okay, we're live on Facebook. We're live on LinkedIn. We are almost live on YouTube. Thank y'all. This is going to be so great. Yay! I got my notes up. Y'all, we're prepared. We are super duper prepared. So yeah, y'all, this is about to be next level ish. Y'all, like if you ever, what we are all praying for and what you should be praying for is for the click moment. Moment when everything clicks, everything comes together and you just get it. And sometimes we're thinking, man, I need more money. I need this, I need that. No, friend, what you really need is that click moment. You need that click moment. You need that moment where everything comes together, because otherwise it's just like you're doing all these things, but nothing really flows. And it won't flow until you have all of y'all to pray that God gives you that moment where he just brings everything together and everything makes sense. You know your directions, you know your assignment, you know who you are, what you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing, your mind, everything, all of that good stuff. Okay. So, so that's where I want you guys to be. So I'm going to get bringing up my notes here, but maybe I'll just bring them up on my phone since they want to be a hater on Google at times. There we go. Thank you, Google Drive. So today what I was renewing your identity. And if you don't know me, my name is Yannick. I've been an executive coach for over 10 years now, meaning I've been working with leaders and entrepreneurs within various industries on how to reach their fullest potential, how to maximize their potential, how to maximize their influence, their finances, how to just get the most and do the most with what they have. And I started doing this because I recognize, one, there's a need for it, because the moment you decide to venture off, do your own thing, become a leader, become an entrepreneur, or just become your best self, it seems to be more of a lonely place. And really, it's because you start talking about those serious topics, whenever you start trying to do better, whenever you start talking about changing, whatever you start talking about going, things just tend to go crazy, and people they're just not with it the way they're with it. So hold on, let me see. Does this thing say? It says no connection. Let's see. I'm gonna start this over just in on TikTok anyway. Mainly because it's a little weird. Let's do this live. Let go. Let's do it. Some of these platforms are just so funny. Oh, perfect. And I can receive guest requests. Good. So the moment you start wanting to do better, things can get lonely. We're married to the old you, the old definitions of yourself. And the higher you go, the fewer people really have the answers. And then the higher you go, the people around you, they're trying to do their own thing. They're trying to figure it out for themselves. And so I started off doing this just because of a need. It came from the basic need of me realizing, hey, when someone is struggling within a certain field, it's not because they don't want to do better. When people are struggling, they don't want to do better. It's not because I started something saying, you know what I want to do today? I want to fail. I want to fail. No one starts anything with the mindset of I want to fail. They start everything, and we all start everything enthusiastically, right? Like we start the diet enthusiastically, we start going to church enthusiastically, we start relationships enthusiastically. Like we start things with enthusiasm and then we get hit with reality and we get hit with what's missing and we get hit with the challenges and we find out why everyone doesn't just do this thing. You ever say, like, why doesn't everyone do this? And then you start it and you recognize exactly why everyone doesn't do it. So that's when I started executive coaching, and I realized that one of my gifts was helping people. We're going to talk about today. One of my gifts was helping people to see themselves differently and helping people to see their circumstances differently. Because I knew if I can get you to really see yourself for who you really are and see your circumstances really are, which most likely is an option. Now, sometimes I might say, look, this whole situation is trash. The time that doesn't happen. So I knew I had that unifying people that way. And so what I started was my mission of like great people trying to do great things. They're just not seeing the situations in the way that they backing that up with the strategy that I've learned being an entrepreneur. You know, while the rest of y'all were in college and doing this and getting your master's degree, I was a company, right? So, and that came with some real things. And then there comes like, I don't want to do this anymore. But guess what? But God, I'm back at my purpose, because guess what? When you're called, the calling doesn't change. Even if you decide to reject it, the calling is still the same. So I am an executive coach. I take on one-on-one coaching clients. The head of a new luminaries, where there's different levels, and discussions every week, and we work with each other. We build each other, hold each other dreams, about accomplishing our dreams, putting out what we're supposed to put out, and really walking in our God-ordained assignment, meaning every single one of you guys that are watching this is something that God said you're supposed to do. Happy hump day, friend. I appreciate you. For every single one of y'all that are watching, whether you're watching on YouTube or on TikTok, Instagram, or on, every single one of you guys has something that you're supposed to do. Now, here's the thing. You can get a calling and assignment, right? Like, how many of y'all, like, I was a really, really bad college, and I would be that person that would get an assignment, and then how many of y'all were those people? You got an assignment and you decided, and this is what's crazy. I would look at the syllabus, see her, and see whether or not I was going to do it. I'm like, oh, give it 5 points. Long as I do everything else, or as long as I do well on everything else, I don't even have to turn this in. How many of y'all were like that? Rebellious. Too cool for school, too smart for your own everything, and end up crazy positions because of that, right? I was that person. So just because you have an assignment doesn't mean you say yes to it. But here's the thing. When you have, and all of you have, a God-given assignment, and you don't say yes to it, you will never be happy until you say yes. Did you hear me? You will never, ever be happy. Never be content until you say yes to it. Meaning there's always going to be something, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, friends, there's always going to be something that's off until you say yes to your assignment. And I hated that. And I ran from that. I was like Jonah, taking out ships, cities, businesses, relationships, everything, because I refused to say yes to my assignments. Who y'all taking out whole cities, whole clubs, whole families, right? Everything because you won't say yes to your assignment. So that's what I do, is I help people see themselves differently, see their situations differently, so that way they can accomplish their divine assignment and they can do that they set out to do. Now, one of the things that I found, because like I said, I work with executives, I have a small group. I have events coming up in July. If you want to come to Atlanta and, get together, one of them's called He Has More, because God has more. I have executives in the marketplace. There's a lot of different things that I do. I also teach dance classes. So if you like to dance and have fun, I do that too. But nevertheless, but my main thing is making you guys accomplish your assignment because one, I'm impacted. That we see in this world, every problem. There is a person or community or network of people that were assigned to solve said problem. There was someone that was assigned to solve that problem. Now, just because they were assigned doesn't mean that they're actually going to. And so what I like to do is to address some of the issues that are present within someone's mind, their will, their strategy that keeps them from doing the things that they were called to do. And some of y'all are like, I don't know what I was called to do about. Is the way you keep seeing yourself that you're not seeing currently in front of you. Meaning it's how you life going in your mind's eye, although they're saying something differently. That is what it is that you're called to do. The things that you're called to do are the things that you get upset about. The things that you're called to do are the things that you just have this natural inclination towards. Like some of you guys are called to be real estate developers, right? You think it's the money that's getting in the way, but it's really your mind that's getting it. Because there's a reason why you keep passing through dilapidated neighborhoods and you get upset and you're like, they should do this and they should do that and they should do that. But how many of you guys know if you can mean that what they should do, you are probably you, friend, are they. But we don't like that. We want to pin it on somebody else and blame it so we can sit at home and watch more reality TV, unrealistic reality TV, or what reality should not be like. But I digress. I'm not going to even jump on that. So today what it's not them. It's not the situation. It's not the money. It's not all of those things. It's your identity. It's your identity. And do this last modified. Here we go. Let me put in today because I don't know why this doesn't come up on screen, but I'm not going to fight it. It's, you don't just, I don't have to fight the devil. I just got to. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to think about what it is and that thing to do. But you've always felt like you were just this far away from. Like you had financial goals and you get all the way there, but you don't quite, or you have, or maybe you have relationship goals, right? Like you want to be married, you want to see your boo, you want to do all these different things. You see yourself walking down the aisle, Al Green, you're like, I'm so tired of being alone. I'm so tired of all of that, right? You like Al Green, you're like all of these different things. You get so close, but no cigar. You get so close. You meet great people, but it seems like you're seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And typically what happens is we either just start saying, I'm just going to work harder, I'm just going to go out more, I'm just going to stay the course, I'm just going to keep doing it. And we do the same things over and over again. We change nothing about strategy, nothing about our mindset. We don't take the time to sit back and reflect on why something's happening. And then we get to a place where everything feels hopeless. How many of you guys have done this? I can't be the only one. I absolutely, positively cannot be the only one. All right. And so really what it is what's holding you back. You think it's this thing, right? But really you need to restore your identity. How you see the depth, put yourself. And really what your identity is the little box that you live your life from. How you see yourself determines whatever type of box you put yourself in. Now, someone who has a redeemed and restored identity, meaning you're like, look, I have built my identity in Christ. Everything he can do, I period. Doesn't matter how, when, born in a manger. Doesn't matter if you grew up in the projects. Doesn't matter if people called you ugly. Doesn't matter whatever. You like, look, I can do the same he can do, period. Point blank and the period. Until you get to that point, issue is always going to be identity. Here's the thing, we've all seen it. Anytime you see people, and I believe that all humans in some form or fashion have experienced trauma, in some way have been marginalized, in some way have been left out, in some way something has happened to make them change themselves. So like if you think back, heck, in America, if we think, the hardest part about slavery, we can fight for rights, we can get money, all these things. But the biggest thing that was lost during slavery was the enslaved African people's identity, how they see themselves. And it's really hard to restore your identity, once you've been told you were something. And especially when that thing is below the standard of God. It's really hard, to restore your identity when you've been advised. It's really hard to restore your identity, when when you've been abused. It's really hard to restore your identity, humiliated. It's really hard to restore your identity whenever you see yourself as being less than. And this is the thing, you give someone resources, but if their identity isn't where they need to be, they will spend those resources, utilize those resources based on whatever their current identity is. So if your identity is that I'm poor, as soon as y'all excuse pumpkin, be quiet. As soon as you get that money, you're going to start using that like a poor person would. And other things that happen, when you don't have a strong identity, you don't yourself the way that you need to do. And when your identity has been, I don't want to use that word, but I guess that's, when something has captured your identity, is that it gives you a short-sightedness. When you think that you're the victim and you're not the giant, you don't see yourself as the giant. What ends up happening is you're going to make decisions as though you were the bug. Somebody about to stop, just go ahead and do this. Let me just enjoy what's in front of me right now. Let me participate in this delicious. Let me live below the standard that I should, just because I don't know, you only live once. I might die. I'm start doing things short-sighted. When you don't see yourself in a certain way, you end up getting into relationships that you have no business being a part of. When you don't see yourself in a certain way, you'll accept less pay. You'll be like, they offering me a little bit more than minimum wage. Let me just take it. Or you'll accept the job because, like, well, no one else is going to hire me, so I know it's $20 lower than the market standard. You'll just take it, right? And so most of the time, identity issues are kind of like an undiagnosed issue. Has ever had this happen where maybe you had some sort of autoimmune migraines, or maybe you're dizzy, or you having stomach issues. There's some sort of problem or symptom that's really hurting you, but you go to the doctor, you keep going back and back and back and back, and no one can tell you what's wrong. They can't tell you why you're breaking out. They can't tell you why you're having migraines. They can't tell you why you're getting sudden dizziness. They can't tell you why your stomach is turning in. They can't tell you why your bowels are messed up. They can't tell you why you're having seizures. They can't tell you any of those things. And it's one of the most hopeless situations that you can be in. And so what do? They start just giving you medicine. Well, maybe it's this and maybe it's that. So you start making all these changes. You're taking all this medication. You're doing that. But the problems never stop. And if anything, they get worse because you're experiencing all these side effects and things thrown off, and you're trying this and you're trying that, and you're spending all this money. And then it's almost like you feel like you're in a worse situation, in a worse state than when you begin with. And that's mostly because, guess what? They were off. They didn't know what, they couldn't identify the issue. I've had this happen with cars. My car will break down. I'll take that car to the shop. They're like, "Oh, it's your starter. I know it's your starter. That's what noise, and it's doing this and this. And you guess what? You pay them your money to replace the starter. And they're like, "Oh, okay, was it? All right, well, it breaks down again." And then they're like, "Oh, it wasn't your starter. Actually, it must have been, your this and that and that and that and that." Man, let me tell you, I end up spending well over $1,000, if not more. I can't even remember now. I don't even want to think about it, for a quote unquote issue, with my starter. And to find out, it was the battery cables. Something that would have cost me $300 to fix if someone would have identified the problem in the first place. And that's how it is when you have an identity issue, and and it's the way that you see yourself that's getting in the way. You start doing things like you start taking all these courses, you go back and get another degree, you switch up your relationship, you switch up it all. Okay. You switch up the way that you do your hair. You start, all right, let me change my church. Let me just start busting the church doors open every day. You buy 1,000 different books, you switch industries. You're like, okay, well, maybe I just need to figure out how to manage my money. Maybe I need to try a new look. Maybe I got to get a BBL. Maybe I need to lose weight. Maybe I need to learn how to be nicer. Maybe there's a problem with my personality. Maybe I'm too aggressive. Maybe it's my approach. Maybe it's this. And so you end up going through all of these different things and these different changes, thinking that there's something wrong with you, when really what's wrong is how you see yourself. And this was something that plagued me in my 20s and has tried to creep up in my life, whether it would be now in my 30s and things of that nature. And what I realized is, no matter what I was trying to do, thank you so much for liking the live. No matter, and y'all go ahead and like it and share it, do all the things so that way, we can bless some people. Y'all get these likes up to like 5,000, whether you're on YouTube, Instagram, whatever, right? Share it, do everything that you need to do. And I really appreciate you, Cheryl Jefferson, for doing that. And so what I really, the issue wasn't necessarily me, my performance, all those things. It all started with my identity. How I saw myself. I didn't understand who I was, the power that I brought in each scenario. And it wasn't low self-esteem in every area. Me personally, my identity was a mixed bag. Like I would say, oh, I'm extremely talented, but I don't know if I'm as talented as that person. Not realizing that built me to stand on my talent, on theirs. And when you put it that way, it sounds stupid, right? Like, of course, you weren't built to stand on the talent of someone else. It's impossible. Even taking the time to compare it. So I had all of this mixture in there. Thank you so much. I think it's powerful too. When I was writing the notes, I said, I'm delivered. Okay. So I had a mixed bag. And so I would say, hey, I can do great things. But on the inside, there was something in me that said, well, I'll do great things, but I know I won't get all the way to the mark. Or I always do great things, but that one little goal, I'll always be right below that goal. I'll come close, but I won't win the race. I got to fight, because next time I win. The identity issue, y'all. And what was funny is identifying myself based on my results, not realizing that my results were based on how I was identifying myself. No. And so next thing you know, you start taking action based upon how you see yourself. You start strategizing based on how you see yourself. And really what I was doing was driving my life and my soul further to the hole. Remember that mechanic thing? Suddenly I'm the mechanic that keeps saying, maybe it's that, maybe it's that. And you start doing all these things until your money runs out. And next thing you know, your car still isn't working. just to find out it was this one little thing that was impacting everything. And so what I didn't realize was how much my identity impacts everything. Your identity will impact your relationships. If you see yourself as less than, your identity will determine how you choose your partners. So if you see yourself as less than, then you're also going to date people who see you as less than. Or y'all ever see people that you're like, you are so talented, smart, and everything, and you meet their partner and you see the entire trajectory of their life change because they decided to get in relationships people that are below the standard, about just like on some like very sub type of way, like, oh well, they got to be making this type of money. I'm talking about the character and the value and the integrity that that person brings to the table. You're supposed to be going to the White House. God ordained you to go to the White House, and you date somebody who stays in the trap house. That makes no sense. It started off with an identity issue. How your identity will determine you how you handle conflict. Are you gonna ball up? Are you gonna set it off? Right? Some of y'all don't ball up. Some of y'all don't know how to apologize because yourself as a victim, and you're like no one will ever victim me. I'll let someone run me over, right? You know, it determines your identity, determines how you run your business. You know, do you choose to run your business like you're only going to be a mom and I just need enough money to pay my bill? Or do you run your business as though it's going to be a legacy within the community and a legacy within your family, right? Do you see your, like Abraham saw himself and his seed? Like everything that I do, the Lord promised me generations of wealth and kings. So let me do this part all the way right. You know, your identity identifies how you treat people, or it impacts your identity. Listen to this, y'all. When I wrote this, I said, if you don't preach to nobody else, if nobody gets it, as long as I get it, Lord, that's all that matters. If nobody else gets it, as long as I get it, that's all that matters. Your identity will impact what you create. Think about it like this. Everything that you create comes from you. So if you see yourself as less than, then you're also going to assume that what you are capable of creating, what comes from mind, what comes from your spirit is of low value. So could it be the reason you're sitting on that idea is because of the way you see yourself? And because you see yourself as having low value, because somebody in third grade told you were ugly, told you were stupid, told you whatever it was that they thought about themselves, you think that you created going to be of low value. What really you don't know is that you were fearfully and wonderfully made, meaning you are full of wonder, and the things that you will also be full of wonder. But I'm just going to leave it at that. Some of y'all treat your kids like that because they came from you. And if you don't value yourself, you probably don't value them that much either. But I digress. We're going to leave it there because y'all fighting me. Some of y'all will send me some hate. Y'all, people will send me hate mail so quick. But don't you know I do this of love? I love y'all. I want to see you win out of obedience. I don't do this because I want to put you down, but someone's got to say it. The reason you've been able to go 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 with the same issues is because no one loved you enough to say it. Your identity will also determine what you chase after. I'm sorry I'm drinking this on camera, but y'all, my electrolytes have been low. I don't know, but fix it, Jesus. So I take care of myself as I also serve the people. Your identity will absolutely determine what it is that you chase after. You stop chasing your identity because in your mind, you think you're going to be longer. So you start chasing a spouse. You start chasing a man, Dante, or a woman, Dantisha, because somewhere in your identity, you think you're not worth a great relationship, or you feel like, look, I don't have what it takes for someone to love me. So let me chase after that instead of letting it find me, right? It will determine what you chase after. Your identity will determine whether or not you play it safe or you, right? My daddy was a gambler. He's like, look, you either go big or go home. You can't look. He used to be like, you can't win big if you're not big. Now, I'm not saying for y'all to go gamble, but at least bet on yourself, bet on your ideas. All the gamblers are probably like, ain't that right? You can't win if you don't play. Your identity will determine your motivation. You see yourself as a loser. Why would you be motivated to go out there when in the end you think you're going to lose anyway? Right? Your identity will determine your willingness to change. Sometimes, and this is the thing, I see this all the time with my clients. I've seen it in myself and everyone at some point. Sometimes we don't realize we're operating in a false identity and we've taken hold of something so much and it's become a part of our identity that we refuse to change that thing about ourselves. So I had to change my identity from saying like, I'm someone like, I'm just greedy. I overeat to saying, no, I eat enough to body and that's it. And that changed when I changed the way that I identify myself with that. But, it'll change your willingness to change. Your identity will determine how vulnerable you are. If you don't like yourself, you're definitely going to show yourself. And I would say most things, especially for you creative people and people who want to attract people to your brand and you want to tell stories and you want to do these different things, you got to be willing to show yourself. And if you don't like yourself, you're certainly not going to show yourself. You're absolutely not going to do yourself. And it's all a part of identity crisis. It's going to affect your creativity and it's going to affect your health. A big problem when you're where it needs to be, you get this short-sightedness. You don't value yourself enough to do what you need to do to take care of your health. But guess what? We are fearfully and wonderfully made in his image. So how is it that we can have a low sense of identity, have a less than identity? And so I'm going to give you a couple of different things and a few rules. I'm actually going to skip ahead. I'm going to break one of my rules. I'm going to skip ahead and give you guys the answers to that and then go back to it. The first rule of identity is this is really, really funny. Hold on. Did that go in here? Okay. Yeah. So the identity is your identity. You are who you are despite what you've done, what they said, where you've been, and regardless if you failed. Your identity is, meaning God created you with a specific purpose and with wonder, regardless of where you're from, where you've been, what they said, how much you failed. And I'll tell you this, a lot of my failures in life did nothing but help build up my identity. But we'll get into that later. So that's where that is. One of the things that I used to do, so if you don't know my background, I've done just about everything. I started my adult life at the University of Michigan studying classical music, studying, viola. So if you ask me who like my favorite producer is, I'm probably going to say my favorite album is, I'm probably going to say the Bach Cello Suite. If you ask me who my favorite singer is, I'll probably say Leontyne Price. Okay. For those of y'all who know, I listen to every type of music, everything, right? So that's that. From there, I ended up going into music. I ended up starting in a sales company and opening up a sales business where I became 2 years old, something like that, an employer. So I started running. It's like, we're going to get this money. We're going to do this. Yes, I still love music, but I don't see myself being in a practice room all the time. And even some of that with some ID issues, right? To where my impacting my abilities to perform in that arena. But we're going to get back to that later. And then from there, running a sales company, then I started executives and, all of these different things. And so there were various points, careers in my life, whether it be in my business and my finances, really in everything, where I felt like I was always getting like really, really close to the goal, but then I would fall shy right here. And part of this was, one, a big part of my identity was I always felt A, defeat, or B, I felt like everything was going to be a fight. Guess what? I felt that way. It was. What I really needed to be was like Mike Tyson, being like, I'm going to knock him out. Found one hit. That's what I should have been like. That's how God created me. He created me to be David. All right. Like, look, we just going to get in here, sing shot, boom, knock this dude down. I'm the king. Well, he didn't immediately become a king, but that's what it was supposed to have been like. Okay. And so what I didn't realize was approaching everything from a defeated space rather than a place of victory. When it came time to reach that next level, I was going in as though I was the underdog. When I look back, in most cases, I was the big dog. God doesn't put you in places for you to be underdog. He don't do that. We only do that. We're the only ones who do that. We're the ones that sign up our kids to go do stuff that they weren't built to do. Your child is 1 pound and likes to play the ball, and you go put them as a linebacker in football. We're the only ones who do things like that. God puts people in places where they were called. He put in places in space. Victor, as a big dog, I just didn't see myself that way. And so subconsciously, what ended up happening was I was putting all of my energy, and this was subconsciously, but I'm saying it to you directly so that way you can identify whether or not this is happening with you subconsciously as well. I was putting all of my efforts into not losing rather than playing the game, knowing that I was going to win. So what ends up happening is you end up more often, and every once in a while, if the other team is off, you'll mess around and win, right? Like, look, I'm not trying to be like this live. I'm not trying to be just like this team came out of nowhere. Shit came out of nowhere. No, I'm trying to show LeBron, like Kobe. You're most likely betting on him, and you're surprised when they don't win the game. And so basically, I was settling for less than who I was. And so in different cases, I accepted less money. I accepted lower quality performance. I accepted low quality relationships. I didn't push myself when I should have. I was focused or I was just demotivated and inconsistent in my motivation. So I would do things, but because I feel like a victor, when it was time for me to just take that thing to the next level, it would always be like, ugh. Other things that I did, I said yes to things because I felt like I had to. Like, well, what else am I going to do? What if no one else offers me the position? Now I'm like, somebody else is absolutely going to. It's just around the corner. God says, I'm just going to decree this thing, right? Or you'll say things like, well, what other choices or opportunities do I have? When your identity is thrown off, you let people take advantage of you. You let people take advantage of you. And they know this. Oh, this is the thing. They know when they can take advantage of you when your identity's off. I'm going to say this, and this is for one of y'all. The reason you attract vultures to you is because vultures are attracted to dead things. Vultures are not attracted to what's alive. Vultures are only attracted to what's already dead. If you want to stop attractors and vampires, you got to bring that thing that was dead back to life. And you better declare and decree that thing and resurrect that thing today, right now, if you want to stop attracting vultures, because they're only attracted to what's already dead. You come back alive, the moment you get your identity, self-image, and your self-worth back together, they're going to flee. Not attracted to that. I could have a live chicken running down the street. Those vultures are not going to come down and pick up that chicken. Now, eagle would. That vulture is going to wait until a car hits it and it's already dead and stank. And that's when they come in. But I digress. I digress. Okay. Some of y'all look at me like, I will never, ever come back to her page again. But I promise you, you will. God bless you. I just get that was a secret. That was God sent that for somebody that's either watching it now, watch this later, and it's going to change your life. Okay, bring that thing to life, and all you have to do is decree that it's back alive. Say that I am back alive. That old me is dead. That dead part of me has been resurrected. You better decree that today is the third day. Today is day 3. And it's summertime. It's summertime, right? We're going to put some fertilizer on it. I'm touching and agreeing with you right now. That thing is back alive, all right? So I want to give you an example of what to do when it comes to your identity. Now, obviously, I can't go through everything today. This is just the introductory portion. And this is so important to me because anytime I have a client one-on-one, this is normally the problem that I find. And normally the first thing that I address is how someone sees themselves. But I want to use, I use myself as an example, but now I'm going to use a biblical example because what? The word of God don't lie. And anytime I use stuff from that, it worked every time. It's not a gamble. You know, I was praying one day. This is a side note. And if y'all learn from me, this is just how things go. That's why my call always run over. So if you schedule a call with me and I say it's an hour, give yourself an hour and 20 minutes. I'm just saying that right now. Okay. So something that I heard when I was praying. God created math and God is a God of numbers, but statistics don't apply to him. Because God don't have statistics 100 for 100 every time. That's not a stat. That's just a reality. It ain't like, oh, he right 50%, things go his way half the time. No, it's 100% of the time. That's the only part of math that don't apply to God is statistics. Because there's no statistics against them. There's no 99 point, none of that stuff. So when you apply the word of God to your life, you know it's going to work every time. Right? You know it's going to work every time. The only time it doesn't work is when we try to make a fleshly decision that was our decision and be like, but God, you said no. You said, I never told you to bring Tyrone into your house. I told you this is it. Now you want me to make him your husband. That ain't going to happen. Some of you guys just commented something that was filtered by put an emoji. And the reason I say that is my page typically does not attract a lot of spammers. And what I find is somebody say things that TikTok just don't like. And so you have to find another way to say it. So whatever you just said, I wanted to read it, but they didn't let me read it. Okay. So this is the example that I'm going to use of the right way that you should do to your identity. Now, I'm going to, before I get into this, I want to talk about how sometimes and how our identities get messed up. And basically, as of tomorrow, no more makeup or fake. Okay. Well, I'm gonna wear makeup. I ain't gonna lie. But yeah. But I don't wear fake hair. I got it, as you can see, I'm bald head scallywag. So some of the issue comes to identity. Now, your outward identity is one part, but what I'm talking about is your identity. And then you work on yourself from the inside going out. Now, this is the thing that's different to work on life from the outside in. Meaning, if you change everything about how you are on the outside, or you conform yourself out, then you'll start to feel better about yourself. But really, how it works is that you have to work your life from the inside out, starting with your spirit, going and making your way out to your flesh, your finances, and everything like that. And so, how do we get this? I'll call it mistakenly. And how do we take hold of a false identity or a lie? Is because typically we start listening to conventional wisdom and we allow people to sow curses into our to sow lies into our identity. I'll start off with saying statistics. Do you know that you can read statistics so often that you become one? Sometimes people will release statistics to make you take hold of said statistic. Like everybody gets divorced. Like you're right. Maybe I should settle for being in a situationship. I know. Part of me knows something in my spirit is telling me I'm a wife or I'm a husband, but because they're releasing all these statistics about divorce and everything else, I'm going to take hold of something else because what they're saying than what my spirit is testifying to me, the thing that I just inherently know. And some of you guys, there's some things that you just that you know that even if everything that you're seeing around you doesn't know it's. Now let me ask y'all this. What happens when you do the opposite of what your intuition is telling you to do? And you say, oh, my intuition said your spirit, that's the Holy Spirit speaking to you. And you go against that for what conventional wisdom is, or because your best friend said this, or someone, criticize you, whatever, and you let go. That's the first way that your identity gets messed up, is that you start listening to them instead of listening to the spirit inside of you. And remember, and if you listen to my live all the time, right? One of my favorite things that scriptures in the Bible is let every man be a liar. Whatever God has been telling you about you is true. Everyone else is lying. God told Moses, you are a prophet and you're going to people into the promised land. And guess what he did? We would have been like, you a murderer. God don't use murderers. You got a record. You don't have your degree. You ugly, you stutter, you this, you that. That's what the people will say. But guess what? Let God true and every man be a liar. And your spirit is telling you through dreams, through visions, your desires, what you're motivated to do, what God is telling you. But what you're fighting is not really your environment. You're not fighting against resources. You're not fighting against opportunities. What you're fighting against is your identity. And once you restore your identity, come. So I'm gonna get off of that and I'm gonna get back into this. So one of my favorite stories in the Bible is about David. And I want to use this as an example because this is like one of the best studies. What's funny is I asked one of my friends last night, I said, look, these are all the things that I provide for people. What is something that I'm missing or that I can also provide to help? As I am 10 toes deep and 100% bought in to giving you guys to get to the next level. And it's a part of my assignment to make sure that you guys reach your assignment. I know when I get to the gates, the Lord is going to show, like, look, I sent you this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. How many of them completed their assignment? How many of them believed me? How many of them believed in themselves? It was your job to take them from the wilderness into this promised land. And I don't want to be Moses, I love you. I don't want to be struck down at the top of the mountain. I don't want to be taken. I want to be like, look, I got in there, and they here too. All right. is what's funny. I'm gonna tell y'all this story. Lord, you couldn't have picked right. Okay. So I'm gonna tell this story, right? Point. Saul, who was the king of Israel, messed up. We don't say that because I'm not gonna have time. If you want to join my Bible study, get on next Wednesday, and we'll do that. But this is about and not about just learning it. So he said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul since I've rejected him as king over Israel?" One of the reasons why you need to take hold of your assignment is because there are people in certain places that God has rejected, and he's going to use you to fill their space. So some of those same people you've been envying, and some of those same people that you've been like, how do they always do this? Da, 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 da. What you don't realize is you're being jealous, or you're comparing yourselves, and you're thinking that they're so much greater than you, and God rejected them 5 years ago. But he's trying to replace you, but you won't answer the call. You still scared. Anyway, he says, he tells him, sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. Jesse is David's dad, by the way. And I've chosen one of his sons to be king. Not all of them, one of them. Somebody said, amen. I know that's right. That in Spartan. Are you from Lansing? You know, I just said I went to Michigan, so we can be friends, or we can't be friends. Okay. Anyway, so Samuel says, but how can I go? If Saul's here about this, he'll kill you. You can't be afraid of. Yes, don't be afraid of who's rejected. So if he says you're going to get a promotion at your job and you think your boss is going to stop you, your boss can't stop you. He's already been rejected. He's been taken out. Position yet. So anyway, he gets there, right? So Samuel did what the Lord said at Bethlehem, and the elders of the town trembled when they met him. First off, this is how you know our prophets aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Because back in the day, when the prophet showed up, you knew something was about to go down. It was either be great news or bad news. Nowadays, the prophets show up, don't nothing happen. Where are the real prophets at? Okay, when they said it wasn't going right, like, oh Lord, it's gonna be a drought for 500 years. Lord, what are we gonna eat? I'm gonna die thirsty. That doesn't happen anymore, but I think that's pretty funny. Okay. So Samuel says, hey, yes, I've come in peace. And then I'll skip to Jesse and his sons and invite them to the sacrifice. Okay, when they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord. So he sees one of Jesse's sons, and he's like, clearly this must be the person. And I'm assuming that he was 6'7", muscular, the tallest one, big. He probably had a lot of confidence. He probably checked all the boxes. Okay. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height. So, okay, I was right. I forgot about that. But he said, don't consider his appearance, his height. Just because they look the part doesn't mean that they are the part. Okay. And he says, the Lord does not look at things people look at. People look at outward appearance, but I look at the heart. So this goes into this. People have said things to you that have impacted your identity based on what their eyes have seen. But God knows what's in your heart and what you are a heart for. And he knows how you're created. So you're basing your identity on what people said to you based on what they've seen outwardly, not knowing that God anointed you based upon the identity that's within you. So imagine higher life, basing your identity and what you can accomplish and what you believe about yourself and how you see yourself and how you see your situations and how you see what you've gone through based upon what's happened in your environment and how you look on the outside, or how people have misread what you've been through based on statistics and everything else. Your identity is based upon what God said about you, period. Else. And he's the emperor of I said what I said. Some of y'all like God and I said what I said, period. Okay. Now you're gonna have to put some coal on your mouth to sanctify and cleanse that thing. But y'all, some of y'all like God. I said what I said, point blank in the period. I said what I said, point blank and the period. Okay. So anyway, so Jesse ends up calling Abinadab. This is another one of his. I haven't passed Samuel. Samuel's like, the Lord hasn't chosen this one either. So pretty much Jesse goes and has 7 of his sons pass by. And and Samuel's like, okay, the Lord hasn't chosen these. And really what is happening, and you'll have this happen to some of you guys have this happen to, when you just get that feeling like, something about this don't feel right. And then there's that time where God confirms something where you have peace in your spirit and okay, yes, go through this door, start this job, do this. Basically, Samuel was going through the process and he wasn't getting that feeling. He's like, something about it's just right. It's just not right. So anyway, he asked Jesse, are these all the sons that you have? Jesse goes, they're still the youngest. He's tending to the sheep. Now, this is what's crazy about this. That means that God chose David, although David wasn't the chosen of his parents. His daddy clearly was not interested in him and was like, surely not David. Because he didn't even call him from the field. David was probably like, ain't no, my youngest one? He out there singing and talking to Goofy one? He out there singing and talking to the sheep. I want the one that know how to work. I want the one that's going to be like me. The Lord says my father is always working. David working. Okay. So what I'm saying is that David's identity was a king, although he was presently being overlooked. That still didn't change the fact, and being overlooked changed the fact that you're a king or you're a queen or whatever it is that you need to achieve. Doesn't matter if no one else sees it. Sometimes we hold back because we're waiting for the rest of the world to confirm what it is that we see when God already confirmed it. You just have to take hold of it. Because your identity has been warped, you don't believe what you're seeing, and therefore you're holding back. So anyway, Samuel said, send for him. We will sit down until he arrives. So basically, this is the part that's gangster. He said, send for him, and everybody will stand here and sweat. I added the sweat part. I don't know if they I have no idea if they were sweating. Okay. But he says, send for him, and we will not sit down until he arrives. Meaning, don't try to play no games. Don't try to act like he was lost. Don't try to do all that. Send for him. So we sent for him, brought in. He had fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord says, rise and anoint him. This one is the one. So Samuel took the horn of oil, anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. Then Samuel left. So, all right. So we're going to get into, so the first thing is you have to realize that although he was being overlooked, he was still called. Although he was doing something, no way reflected his true calling. Well, I wouldn't say in no way, right? He was being a shepherd. And when you are a king, you are a shepherd of people and of nations. But no one looks at a shepherd boy and says, oh, this one's going to be king. Meaning current place and status in life did not reflect where he was going, but where identity was still inside of him. So you have to restore your identity based on where you're going, not based on your current position. You can't establish your identity based upon your current position in life. Why? Everything happens in season, and it's a process. It's just going to add up to each other. But you've got to see yourself now and restore your identity now, and let your identity based upon around you right now. Doesn't matter. You know, David was in the field with sheep, dirty, sweaty, other things, right? But his actual and true thing. So doesn't matter if you're overlooked. It doesn't matter what people say about you. Remember, his surely not, right? Like they're still the youngest. You know, he's like, they're still the youngest. He didn't say, let me go get them. They're still the youngest. All right. So it doesn't matter what people about you. You have to take hold of your identity right here, right now. And so now this is the key and I'm not going to go through all of it. If you want to read it for yourself, it's really easy. First Samuel chapter 16. But this is the key. He gets anointed. And as soon as he's anointed, meaning his identity was established, God confirmed his identity. It was established. Immediately, God started making moves to put him in position. He takes the anointing away and takes his presence away from Saul. He actually gets an evil presence. The Lord sends him an evil spirit. And what ends up happening was the current king ends up bringing David into his kingdom based upon what David had been doing. All right. And so the moment you really take hold of your true identity, God will start moving to establish you and put you in position. But it's not going to happen until you really take hold and you really restore your identity. And you really start seeing yourself the way that God sees you. You really start seeing yourself as how you were fearfully made. And you stop seeing yourself from the lens of your failure. You stop seeing yourself from the lenses of your trauma. You stop seeing yourself from the places and the lens in which you've been victimized. Stop seeing yourself based upon where you currently are. You stop seeing yourself based on your past failures. You stop seeing yourself based upon your outward appearance. Because guess what? You can change your outward appearance. I remember one of my colleagues, he said his dad used to tell him there's no such thing as people and pretty people. There's just people with money and people without it. Aren't we learning that more each day? That's true. Ain't nobody ugly in this world. Just people without resources. Right? And so you wanna look at that. It doesn't matter if people are currently overlooking you. You don't have to wait until they start paying attention to you for you to live your identity. And you start showing up as your true self and showing up as to how your spirit is tested to you. Do y'all remember that Michael movie, the Jackson 5? And y'all remember when what's Michael Jackson's daddy's name? Joe Jackson was pretty much telling Michael, like, you too young, you too this, you too that. And you saw in the movie was Michael outside doing turns and singing. He just out there turning dance moves and everything else. You can say that boy who was and stood firm in who he was, although people were calling him otherwise. All was being overlooked. And then next thing you know, he gets put in the exact place he was supposed to be in the first place. And sometimes you're thinking, man, why does it feel like nothing's happening? Why does it feel like I never hit my goal? And I'm telling you, the reason, no one's going to tell you this, but the reason you're not hitting it is you've never taken hold of your true identity. You're trying to operate based on false identity. You're getting less than what you're supposed to get. And the reason you're getting less than what God has already ordained and established you is because you have yet to see yourself as you truly are. Now, here's the thing, Because we think just because God ordained a thing or he put it in you, that it's going to automatically happen. David had to take hold of that thing. What if he would have said, I know you ordained me as a king, but I'm really just a servant. I'm not going to the castle. I'm not doing anything. I'm just stay right here. Clearly you lied. Clearly you chose wrong. Clearly what I'm seeing is wrong. What if he would have looked at it and says, I'm too small? One of the reasons that David was able to take out Goliath is he believed the promise that God gave him. When you really believe God has your back, you're not going to be afraid to go out and do that thing. Like, I'm in this space now. I don't care who it is or what I'm trying to do. I'm like, my back. I don't care if one person, if only one person believes in me. As long as he believes in me, I know something's going to shake. And you can't tell me otherwise. You have to get in that place. And a big issue is that we believe what they say and we call God a liar. But he's constantly putting it inside of you of who you are and what you're meant to do. You refuse to grab hold of it. And that's the hard part. God is always going to do his part, but you have to do yours. And a big part of that is having faith in who you are and how he created you, and let every man be a like God. Stop believing what people said about you. Stop believing the statistics. Some of y'all need to turn the TV off. Some of you need to erase. Hey, ask God to remove the memories of the things that people see you. Stop thinking about your past failure. Stop looking at where you are today as an indicator God wants you to be. Where you are today is just based upon the identity that you've held, how you've seen yourself, and how you've seen your circumstances up until this point. But you can decide today to see yourself differently. And all you have to do is decree, hey, this is where I am. And you make it to where you plan on being. I don't care if you live in the projects. I live in an estate. I don't care if they paying you. I am the paid person in a company, in this company. I don't care what it is, because once you identity and you see yourself, everything else will start to flow from there, because that's the basis of your heart. That's the base of your soul is in your identity. And your soul is simply your mind, your will, and your emotions. And so if the way you see yourself is less your mind and how you think, look, I have to use government services. I'm not very well paid. I'm in debt. I'm in this, I'm in that. That's your mind is going to think. You're going to think I'm in debt. What do people quit? Settle. Right? Someone who says I am rich, I just so happen to get some debt. They're like, look, we're going to pay this off. We're going to move on. Right? If you think whatever that thing is, your mind, your will, and your emotions are going to back that thing up, because it all begins your identity. If your identity is a mixed bag, meaning sometimes in these areas you think you're great, in these areas you think you're the worst person in the world. You have the best ideas, but you think you ugly, and you don't have the right face card. If you do this, you do that. If it's a mixed bag, then what you're going to do is get a mixed bag of results. And that's why your life is on this perpetual cycle. So if I were you, I would take a moment right now and write out, hey, or put it in your phone, do whatever. Write out how you see yourself. What are all the great things you see about yourself? And what are the areas you don't see yourself in a good light? And take those areas and think about them every day, and think new thoughts about those things every single day. But it's not your environment. It's not circumstances. It's not your opportunity. It's not your past. It's not where you are now. It's not how you failed. Everything stems back to identity. And nothing and no one person, place, or community can experience permanent change until they have a permanent increase in their identity. That's why the best way to keep a group of people down, a person down, is to make themselves than what they truly are. Because the moment you start seeing yourself as less than, all of your decisions, your actions, and your beliefs are going to follow that. And what I found is that people who have a low self-image, their identity has been stolen, their identity has had some weeds poured in there, whatever that is, they will always deal with short-sightedness. So as you can see, the lawn people are here. So I guess it's my time to wrap this up. So there's a couple of things I want you guys to do. The first thing is follow me, follow my page, do all of those things. If you go on the link in my YouTube to where maybe if you came in here, this has been an hour and 10 minutes. Maybe you came in or whatever, or maybe you're on YouTube right now watching this. You can see from the beginning and you don't have to miss it. So follow me. If you are someone where you're like, look, I know I have an issue with this and I need someone to help me with this. This is what I do for a living for over 10 years now. Leaders and great achieve the goals that they set out to achieve. To achieve the assignment, I am spiritually held accountable to make sure that the people that are within my scope get what they need to accomplish their assignment. And there's so much confidence that you get. It puts that wind underneath your sails whenever you're doing the things that you know you're capable of. Something in you says, I should, and you receive the support, the skills, and you make the changes to do that. And sometimes you need someone else to come in and to help take. Usually the first step whenever I help someone is to figure out how do they see themselves, and I help them change the way that they see themselves in their situation and give them strategy in order to fix it. And so you can do profile, click the link where it says schedule discovery session. I will give you 30 to 45 minutes of my time. Most of the time it ends up being an hour but we'll be talking. Schedule discovery session. We'll go from there and I'll determine, what the best next steps are. Who want to have like more small groups and, you really work through your personal things. Maybe you don't want, but you want to be more in a peer group or something like that. I do have a small group that you can apply to be a part of. But for some of you, you need to start off with the basics. What is it? And who am I? And if you're one of those people in my profile, there's a workbook called Cultivating Vision and Strategy. And what it will do is help you identify what you want. Because sometimes you don't know what you want to even know that you're getting in the way. You just think you're like, things got to be better than this, but you haven't defined what better is. And everything begins with vision. It was the vision and what I wanted that sparked my search for answers as to why I wasn't getting it. It's not until you really say, I want to get married, that you go to counseling and figure out, why isn't this happening yet? So you can identify what you want. So download the workbook, fill it out. You can do it on your own time. If you want to email it to me, you can. I'll be happy to respond, things of that nature. And I really think that that's it. So y'all follow. If you need one-on-one help, do that. Go on my YouTube page. I'll post lessons like this all the time. Download the vision workbook. Just do whatever you need to do. But most importantly, don't quit. The reason I take my job so seriously is because there's something that you are assigned to do. There's a problem that you are uniquely fashioned to solve. And the longer you go without really stepping into that assignment, without solving that problem, one, you're going to deal with a lot of anxiety because your soul is going to be saying, hey, we're not in the right place. We're not in the right place. We're supposed to be over here. We're supposed to be doing this thing. Why are we sitting in this dead-end job forever? This dead-end relationship. Your wife is over there. Your husband's over there. This person's house. You will have so much anxiety. Eventually. But most importantly, there are people who are waiting for you to step up and do what you're supposed to do. You may be using your past as evidence, having, a lower, actually your past was supposed to uniquely fashion you to go get the others. It is my that allowed me to go grab people from that space of failure. It is every place that I got less than grace allows me to show people, hey, things may seem bleak, but it gets better. You absolutely can change things. Things don't have to go this way. But I had to stop using my past as evidence as to why I'm less than. So you have to do that, because you got to get yourself together, because you were also meant to go get the others. And there's too many people out here suffering with the same issues and the same problems that you have for you to just sit on the couch and wait. And lastly, but not least, your gifts will make room for you. And your vision is the answer to your life's complaints. Everything that you want more of, you're going to get more of when you decide to take hold of your vision and do what you need to do and that thing that's inside of you. So thank you guys so much for sitting in here. Again, my name's Yannick, and I hope you've enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. Because nobody else anything from this, y'all, let me tell you. I'm about to go in here and do this too. So be on the lookout for that. Love you guys. Bye. Excellent. If I can get off of here.